Hello there! It is I at last. I must apologize for my lengthy absence. I'm afraid these past few weeks I've been suffering from a chronic case of lack of motivation. I was actually going to do a video on that very topic, but I couldn't be bothered. Anyway, so I have been doing some work on the P-12E, quite a bit in fact, so I'll give you a quick update on that, where I'm up to with it, show you a few things that I've done and how I did them, and yes, let's crack on with that, shall we? And here it is. There is the offending critter right there. It is looking like a P-12E, I think. As you can see, I've got the cowling together, painted, got my black stripes on there. It actually isn't glued on at this point, simply because I haven't clear coated it since I did the decaling of the stripes just now. Faceplate is on, and as you can see, the wheels are all painted up. Those are on. Tail skid, that was a big one, so got that made. Now, I managed to find a really good video of the Boeing 100, that's the export version of the P-12E, that exists in, I believe it's the Royal Thailand Museum. I'll stick a link to that in the description. It's well worth a watch if the subject interests you. It gives a really good walk around of the Boeing 100 and a very good close-up of the tail skid. So that was very, very useful in scratch building mine. So I made this out of brass tubing, soldered together for strength, and then the fairing I just made from sheet plastic, put that over top and epoxied it in place. It's actually a very, very simple structure, so I don't know why I procrastinated on it so long, but hey ho, these things happen. Now, rudder, as you can see, that's all painted up, that's glued on. So I've got very little left to do on this, really. The headrest is actually painted, I just haven't glued it on yet, and as you can see, the seat cushion that I made for Milliput is in place, if you can see that. So what have I got left? Elevators, ailerons, aileron push rods, propeller. Propeller's going to need a fair amount of work. It's kind of basic, not very good. So yeah, it's getting there. So I will now show you how I painted up that rudder and how I finished off the cowling. But first, a word from our sponsor. Howdy folks, Honest Bob here from Honest Bob's New and Used Seed Emporium. You want the best deal you can get on new and used seeds? Damn right you do. You come on down, I'll make you that deal. Hell, we got new seeds. We got used seeds. I got seeds that ain't even out of Mother Nature's packaging yet. Look at that there, right there. Tell you what, you come down for a limited time offer, you buy one seed, you get one seed free. That's right, absolutely true. You heard it, this weekend only. One seed gets you one seed free. We don't sell seeds by the packet. Hell no. You don't want these damn things. You don't want 500 of the same damn plant. No siree. We sell them individually. That's what you want. One plant at a time. Absolutely. So you come on down, visit us today at Honest Bob's New and Used Seed Emporium. You can't miss us. We're down the road, right next to the big rock. I thought the cowling was going to be tricky to mask, but actually it was very, very easy. I just cut a disc out of some thin cardboard and cut a slot in that, pop that in the front, a little bit of tape. And then in the back, I just rolled up another piece of cardboard and shoved that in the back and taped it all up, and it worked out a treat. So I stuck the cowling on the front of the P-12, and I marked out my center line there in relation to the markings on the fuselage. And rather annoyingly, I noticed while doing that these two panel lines are off center, and same on the bottom there. Now, there is only one way to assemble the engine in the cowling, because there's a socket on the bottom that this oil sump fits into. So yeah, that's rather annoying, but I am not going to refinish it and disassemble the engine and try and fix that at this point. I'll just have to live with it. But it's something to be aware of should the same situation arise when I use one of these engines for the F4B4. Anyway, so what I did then was I wrapped a thin strip of tape around the trailing edge here, and then when I took that off, I was able to measure exactly how far it is between my two centerline points. And then I basically measured the width of the cowling, and so I've got sort of a flattened out version of half my cowling, if you like, and I managed to find a tin can, this one right here, which was the exact arc that I needed to mark that out. And then it's just a matter of, get that out of the way there we go, transferring those dimensions to a double layer of masking tape. That way I can cut both masks at the same time. Centering my can on there. I've got my 2 marks there for the length needed. And somewhere here, oh, there we go. An X-Acto knife. Hopefully this works. I'll just use my can now to cut through both pieces of masking tape. And in theory, this will give me the shape needed to cut those pesky shapes and mask the cowling. Let's hope this works. And there we have it. I've actually managed to mask off that complex shape on the many compound curves of this cowling. And trust me when I say that no one is more surprised than I am that that actually worked. So we'll just continue masking that off, and then I'll get my olive drab on there and the black outlines, and this engine is good to go on the model. Good-ching. And there she be. Olive drab went on quite well, all the masking's been taken off, and I think that turned out rather acceptable. Et voila! The finished engine and cowling, complete with faceplate. Now that resin faceplate that came with the Vector engine is a nice snug fit. It doesn't need any glue whatsoever, so I didn't bother. And it's not going to come out. And here is the black decal strips for the edging around the orange. I think it looks very, very sharp. Quite spiffy indeed. So that just needs a quick coat of clear, and it's ready to go on the model. Here's a little close-up of that tail skid. As I mentioned, it's very simple. There's just an upper and a lower strut that attach to a vertical king post, and that attaches to the rear fuselage. A little shoe on the bottom, I made that from scrap plastic. The strut itself is from a couple of different sizes of brass tubing soldered together, and the fairing is from sheet plastic. Now, if you have a look at that video that I mentioned before, you will see that not only does it show the skid without that fairing, which gives you a good opportunity to see the structure of it, but you'll notice that the top strut has a large spring on it. And since that's not really visible on the model, I didn't bother with it. I left it off. So let's have a look at that rudder next, and I'll show you how I laid out the stripes and masked them all off. Here's our dilemma. How do we take this oddly shaped chunk of plastic and divide it into 13 evenly spaced stripes? Well, this method may be old hat to some of you, but for those of you that haven't seen it before, it could be a useful exercise. So, first thing to do, I'm going to take a piece of paper, and I'm going to measure the overall height of the rudder, and I'm using my handy-dandy calipers here, which I've preset to make it a little easier. Get in there. And so there we go. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm really not a metric kind of guy, but for this particular exercise, the metric system is going to be a little bit easier to use. So, what have we got here? When I transfer that, is basically 4.5 centimeters. So, I'm going to use half centimeters as my designator, and that's the reason I'm using the metric system, because to use one of these 16ths or 8ths or quarters would just be a little bit problematic, really. So what we need to do is, I'll take my little calipers here, draw a couple of parallel lines, mostly. That. So that's the overall height of my rudder, and I'm just going to extend those lines a little bit, just to make this a little easier. Lined up. There we go. It's more or less correct. So using my half centimeter designators, all I need to do is line this up so I've got 13 of these intersecting. So 4 centimeters is going to be, what, 8? Is that right? I need 6.5 to get my 13. Math was never my strong point, so I hope I'm doing this right. In there. Okay, there we go. So I've got my 6.5, which is 13 segments, lined up there. Now all I need to do is mark out each 5mm space. I might not be doing this completely accurately, but I can tidy that up a bit when I draw these lines out. And there we have it. 13 spaces, evenly spaced, more or less, which I can tidy up in a little bit. And yeah, and so what does that give me? If I measure that out, I've got a hair over 3 millimeters. So in theory, my stripes will be a hair over 3 millimeters each, and that will give me 13 consecutive, evenly spaced, identical stripes, I hope. There we have it. So basically what I've done is I've used a double thickness of masking tape, and that way when I cut my strips, I made sure that I have plenty of them that were all exactly the same width, and then I've just laid them all out on the rudder. Obviously, it would have been a lot easier to do if I'd had a big sheet of masking material, and I could have just done that little exercise straight on there, but all I have to work with is tape, so that's what I've done. Now, you could, of course, be a complete smartass and just use a calculator and divide 13 into 45 millimeters, which gives you 3.46, but I thought I'd do it the long-winded way. Anyway, so now it's just a case of taking off the ones that you want to be red. Make sure you get the right ones. And the nice thing about the P-12 rudder, of course, it's got these lovely corrugations, which makes it very, very easy to get them nice and straight and horizontal. And of course, that's assuming that Hasegawa got them straight and horizontal. And there we have it. Get over there. I can use those strips on the other side. There we go. Now, obviously, I'm not too worried about leading edge because that's going to be a vertical insignia blue stripe, but that's basically the gist of it. I just need to do the other side, and we can do some painting. There's the red stripes painted on, and you'll notice that I actually masked off where the insignia blue stripe will be, and that's just so I don't get any ridges from the masking process showing through the blue paint. So now all I need to do is mask that off, paint the blue, get my Boeing decals on there, and this rudder is done and ready to go on. And there is the completed rudder, looking very, very sharp. Quite like that. Turned out pretty okay, I think. And you'll notice that I've added 2 pieces of brass rod here. They will fit into holes drilled in the fin, which will give me a much more secure mounting method. So there we go. That's pretty much all I have for you today. So, quick recap. What have I got left? Got to get that propeller done. That needs some work. Get that on. Exhaust pipes, navigation lights, ailerons, aileron push rods. There's a little fuel filler that goes in here somewhere. Windshield. The windshield in there. Oh, there's like a little deflector fairing thing that goes in front of the tail skids. That'll be easy. Get that on. Elevators, bits and bobs. I think that's pretty much it. So I really have no excuse not to get this done in the next video. I will do my very best. So that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and we will see you very soon. If you like this video, then I think you're supposed to like it or something. I don't know. Subscribe and share and, bark at the moon. All that stuff. See you soon. Thank you.